Maya Williams, a beautiful and intelligent black woman, was always proud of her simple yet meaningful life. She was an English teacher at a high school on the outskirts of New Orleans, where she had been teaching for the past 10 years. Maya loved her job. She saw her students as her own children and always strived to inspire them, especially the ones from difficult backgrounds. Maya lived with her husband, Daniel Williams, and their 2 children, Alex and Mia, in a cozy house on a quiet street. Daniel was a loving husband and a great father. However, he had a big secret that even Maya didn't know. He was a senior CIA agent, often involved in dangerous missions. Daniel was very tight-lipped about his job, and Maya never asked many questions because she trusted him completely. That evening, after work, Maya drove her black SUV home. This car was a gift from Daniel on her birthday last year, a surprising and loving present. She often drove through a wealthy suburban area to avoid traffic. However, today was an unlucky day. The flashing lights of a police car appeared behind her, and the siren blared, causing Maya to jump. Her heart pounded as she slowly pulled over to the side of the road. A tall, white police officer with a cold expression approached. He was Kevin Brooks, a cop notorious for his arrogant attitude and racist behavior, although no one had dared to report him. "Do you know why I stopped your car?" Kevin asked, his tone dripping with contempt. Maya replied politely, "I'm not sure, officer. Did I do something wrong? This is an upscale residential area. A woman like you driving this car. Do you have proof of ownership?" Kevin looked Maya up and down with a look full of prejudice. Maya felt her face flush with anger. She tried to stay calm and handed him her vehicle papers and driver's license. But instead of checking, Kevin started searching her car without permission. Maya attempted to object, but he waved her off. "What are you hiding in this car? Drugs? Cash from illegal transactions?" Kevin said mockingly. Maya was furious but kept her composure. "Officer, I'm a teacher. I have nothing to hide." However, Kevin didn't stop. He handcuffed Maya and forced her to kneel on the ground. Even though she offered no resistance, passers-by began to gather and some pulled out their phones to record the scene. Maya felt humiliated and powerless. She couldn't believe she was being treated like a criminal just because of the color of her skin and the car she was driving. After searching the car and finding nothing, Kevin still didn't let Maya go. He continued interrogating her with questions laced with insults. "What does your husband do? Or is this the car of some guy who gave it to you?" Kevin asked, his tone mocking. Maya gritted her teeth, trying not to let the tears escape. "This is my family's car, and I haven't done anything wrong to deserve this treatment." Kevin threw the car papers back at Maya with disdain. "All right, you're lucky today, but remember, don't let me see you here again." Maya stood up, brushing the dust off her clothes. Despite feeling furious, she chose not to argue further. Knowing that any words at this moment would only make things worse, she returned to her car, shut the door, and drove away in confusion and pain. On her way home, Maya's tears kept falling. She felt not only humiliated but also stripped of her right to be treated fairly. Maya thought about her 2 children and wondered how they would face this injustice when they grew up. When Maya arrived home, Daniel was preparing dinner for the family. Noticing his wife enter with a pale face and a sad look in her eyes, he immediately realized something was wrong. "Maya, what's wrong? What happened?" Daniel asked, concerned as he moved closer. Maya tried to smile but couldn't. She sat down on the chair and recounted the whole story, from being stopped by the police to the humiliation she suffered. Her voice trembled, and tears welled up again as she recalled the curious stares from the bystanders. Daniel listened in silence, his hands clenched tightly. A surge of anger filled him, even though he was a CIA agent who had faced many dangerous situations. He couldn't contain his fury hearing how his wife had been treated unjustly. "Do you know his name?" Daniel asked, his voice deepening, his eyes filled with resolve. "His name is Kevin Brooks," Maya replied. "But Daniel, I don't want you to do anything reckless. We can't change the system. Daniel nodded, but in his heart, he had already made up his mind. Maya didn't know that her husband was not just an ordinary man. He had the skills and resources to deal with people like Kevin Brooks. That night, after putting Maya to bed, Daniel began his work. He used CIA tools to gather information on Kevin Brooks. Within just a few hours, he had compiled a series of documents on the police officer. Kevin Brooks was not an exemplary officer. He had numerous complaints from citizens about his racist behavior, abuse of power, and use of unnecessary violence. However, thanks to his connections within the police department, all the accusations were buried. Daniel didn't stop there. He uncovered suspicious financial transactions, trips to underground clubs, and shady connections with local crime syndicates. Daniel realized that Kevin was not just a racist cop. He was part of a much larger, corrupt system. The next morning, Daniel took Maya and their children out to help her forget the pain. But in his mind, a plan for revenge was already forming. Kevin Brooks would not only pay for what he had done to Maya, but also for all the other victims he had hurt. Kevin Brooks walked into the police station as usual, a smug smile plastered on his face. For him, the incident with Maya was just another achievement in his list of moments where he asserted his power. Even his close colleagues congratulated him for teaching that woman who didn't know her place a lesson. In the break room, Kevin relayed the story with pride. "You should have seen her face. She'll probably never dare drive that car through this area again." Laughter erupted, but not everyone in the station agreed. Some of the younger officers, eager to follow the law, felt discontented with Kevin's attitude. However, they remained silent, knowing that speaking out would only isolate them or even lead to retaliation. Kevin had strong influence within the department, thanks to his connections with leadership. Meanwhile, the video of the incident started circulating on social media. A bystander had captured the entire scene of Kevin humiliating Maya and posted it with the hashtag Justice for Maya. A wave of outrage from the community quickly erupted. But Kevin remained unfazed. He believed that the system would always be on his side. Within just a few days, Maya's story became the focal point of the media. Articles, reports, and discussions on social media continuously highlighted the injustice she had endured. Human rights organizations and the local Black community organized protests, demanding that the police department investigate and take action against Kevin Brooks. Maya, although still struggling to fully overcome the pain, decided not to stay silent. She participated in a press conference organized by a human rights group, where she shared her story with a trembling voice but unwavering determination. "This isn't just about me. This is a systemic issue. I speak up not just for myself but for all those who have suffered the same injustice." Maya's words moved many. The video of the press conference spread rapidly, and the hashtag Justice for Maya became a movement. Activists, lawyers, and public figures began to join in, intensifying the pressure. Meanwhile, Kevin began to feel uneasy. He received a flood of threatening messages from the community and was relentlessly pursued by the media. However, instead of feeling remorse, Kevin became even more bitter. He began plotting a counterattack by attempting to smear Maya's reputation. Daniel couldn't sit idle while everything unfolded. As a seasoned CIA agent, he knew that people like Kevin needed to be brought down by the very system they exploited. Daniel began his plan by approaching Kevin indirectly, posing as a regular citizen wanting to learn about the incident. Daniel joined online forums where Kevin and his supporters congregated. He quickly gathered information about Kevin's mindset and his connections within the police department. One day, Daniel visited the police station, requesting to meet Kevin as a media representative interested in conducting an interview. Although cautious, Kevin agreed to meet, believing it was an opportunity to protect his image. During the meeting, Daniel skillfully asked questions that provoked Kevin's arrogance. Kevin didn't realize that he was revealing information that could backfire on him. "Who does she think she is? I'm just doing my job," Kevin said, his voice full of self-satisfaction. Daniel noted every detail. As he left the police station, he knew he had gathered enough data to move forward with his plan. He decided to make Kevin face the truth by dismantling the entire protective network he relied on. Daniel spent many nights analyzing the data he had gathered. He discovered that Kevin was not just an abusive police officer but also involved in an underground criminal network. The shady transactions, connections with drug cartels, and unexplained sums of money painted a broader picture of the corruption within the system. With this evidence, Daniel began to take action. He secretly sent documents to investigative journalists, who were ready to expose the story. At the same time, he contacted several trusted high-ranking officials, urging them to launch an internal investigation. Kevin started to feel the danger as investigative articles began appearing, accusing him of misconduct. His relationships within the police department also began to crack as pressure from the community and media grew. Not stopping there, Daniel made a bolder move. He used his intelligence skills to reach out to members of the criminal network Kevin was involved with. Using the information he gathered, Daniel gradually dismantled the connections between Kevin and these gangs. Isolating him completely, Kevin grew increasingly desperate. He felt like everything was collapsing around him, but still didn't realize that all of this was part of a plan meticulously set up by Daniel. When Kevin attempted to retaliate by smearing Maya in the media, Daniel responded swiftly. He released further evidence of Kevin's corruption and discrimination, leaving him with no opportunity to justify his actions. At this point, Maya began to realize that Daniel was doing something to protect her, but she didn't know the full truth. Daniel kept silent because he knew that this battle was not just about seeking justice for Maya, but also exposing the rot within an entire system. The situation quickly became a hot topic across all media outlets. Investigative articles continuously exposed Kevin Brooks' misconduct, from abuse of power to involvement in criminal activities. His image, once hidden by the system, was now tarnished. The community grew increasingly angry. Protests became larger, and the pressure on the police department intensified. Kevin began to feel uneasy. Former colleagues who had supported him now distanced themselves, and some even secretly cooperated with investigators to avoid getting entangled. Every working day became a psychological battle for Kevin, and he started to doubt everyone around him. That evening, during a closed-door police meeting, the leaders began discussing how to handle Kevin to reduce the pressure from public opinion. Some officers suggested suspending him, while others feared this would set a bad precedent and encourage the community to make more demands. Though Kevin was not present at the meeting, he heard about it through a close ally. He felt betrayed and decided to retaliate. Kevin tried to approach the media, making statements to smear Maya and downplay the seriousness of the situation. "Doesn't everyone see that I was just doing my job? This is a conspiracy to ruin the reputation of the police," Kevin declared in an interview. However, Kevin's efforts proved ineffective. Public opinion remained firmly on Maya's side, especially after she appeared on a popular talk show and shared her story. Maya not only inspired but also emphasized that this was not a personal issue, but a systemic one. While Kevin struggled with public pressure and betrayal from within, Daniel continued to investigate deeper. He discovered that Kevin was not only a racist and abuser of power, but also had ties to a major criminal organization in New Orleans. Kevin had been receiving money from this organization in exchange for protecting drug trafficking and money laundering activities. In return for police protection, Daniel knew this was an opportunity not just to take Kevin down, but to shake the very system he relied on. Using his information-gathering skills, Daniel secretly approached members of this organization, using the evidence he had to threaten and force them to reveal more information. One of Kevin's key connections was a man named Marcus, a drug kingpin. Marcus initially refused to cooperate, but when Daniel provided evidence of his dealings with Kevin, Marcus realized he had no way out. He agreed to turn over all the information, including financial transactions and recordings of exchanges between Kevin and the organization. Meanwhile, Kevin began to sense that everything around him was collapsing. He discovered that some members of the organization had been arrested and were willing to testify against him. Kevin decided to take action first by threatening Maya and her family. Maya began receiving anonymous threatening messages. The messages targeted her and her family, demanding that she stop speaking out or face serious consequences. First, Maya was terrified, but then she realized that this was Kevin's way of trying to silence her. Instead of backing down, Maya decided to fight back even stronger. She reached out to larger human rights organizations and called for support from prominent social activists. They organized a massive protest right outside the police station, drawing thousands of participants. Maya also began working with lawyers to prepare a civil lawsuit against Kevin and the police department. Her lawyers used the evidence provided by Daniel cleverly, making sure not to reveal that it came from a CIA agent. The wave of support for Maya grew stronger. She received many encouraging words from others who had been victims of Kevin, which made her even more determined not to back down. These words of encouragement also helped Maya overcome her initial fear and sense of helplessness. Daniel knew that Kevin wouldn't give up easily, especially when he was cornered. One evening, while returning home from a meeting with a source, Daniel realized he was being followed. He quickly changed course, using his CIA agent skills to throw off the pursuer. When he arrived home, Daniel noticed a strange car parked nearby. He became cautious and checked the security camera system. Through the footage, he saw an unfamiliar man, seemingly a hired assassin, trying to approach the house. Daniel knew this was a warning from Kevin. He immediately increased the security measures for his family, including installing additional cameras, reinforcing the locks, and contacting friends in the CIA for support. Realizing the growing danger, Daniel decided to accelerate his plan. He released part of the evidence he had collected to investigative journalists, causing Kevin to be suspended immediately. At the same time, he provided information about Kevin's criminal dealings to the FBI, ensuring that Kevin would have no escape. Meanwhile, Kevin, having lost all support from the criminal organization and his colleagues, began to panic. He didn't know that the real nightmare was still ahead. As Kevin Brooks tried to cling to the remaining connections he had, a series of new investigative articles emerged, delivering the final blow to his already decaying image. These articles publicly presented evidence of Kevin's abuse of power, receiving bribes from criminal organizations, and engaging in illegal transactions. A recording was released, in which Kevin casually discussed protecting a drug shipment with a dealer, becoming irrefutable proof. The community erupted in outrage. Protests grew larger, not only demanding justice for Maya but also calling for comprehensive reform in the police system. Many other victims of Kevin, who had previously been threatened into silence, now stepped forward, exposing his wrongdoings. Meanwhile, the police department could no longer shield Kevin. Under pressure from public opinion and the FBI's investigations, Kevin was indefinitely suspended and officially faced a series of criminal charges, ranging from abuse of power to corruption and ties with organized crime. Kevin fell into a state of panic. He tried to reach out to old allies, but they all turned their backs on him. Fearing involvement, the sense of betrayal and isolation grew heavier, causing Kevin to slowly lose control. The case quickly moved to the legal stage. Maya, with the support of a human rights lawyer team, filed a lawsuit against Kevin and the police department for racial discrimination and abuse of power. This was not just a personal lawsuit but also a symbolic one, representing the victims of systemic injustice. Daniel continued to support Maya from behind the scenes, although he could not publicly intervene due to the sensitive nature of his work. He used his connections and resources from the CIA to ensure that the evidence was presented to the court thoroughly and legally. The trial attracted significant attention from the media and the community. Maya appeared in court as the plaintiff, while Kevin faced a series of damning pieces of evidence. Witnesses, including some of Kevin's previous victims, took the stand and shared their stories of abuse and humiliation at his hands. Kevin's defense lawyers tried to turn the tables by tarnishing Maya's reputation, but these efforts quickly failed. Public opinion stood firmly behind Maya, and the truth could not be hidden. Audio recordings, financial documents, and videos from previous incidents clearly demonstrated that Kevin was a lawbreaker. The trial lasted for weeks, but in the end, the jury declared Kevin guilty. He was convicted of serious charges, including abuse of power, corruption, and ties to criminal organizations. The police department was also ordered to compensate Maya and other victims and to commit to reforming the system to prevent similar incidents from happening again. Not only Kevin, but the entire police system of New Orleans was placed under a microscope. A large-scale investigation was launched, resulting in the dismissal and arrest of officers with misconduct. New policies were implemented, requiring greater transparency in police operations and increased oversight from independent organizations. Maya, although she had achieved justice, still did not feel fully satisfied. She understood that a single lawsuit could not change the entire system. With support from human rights organizations, Maya decided to establish a nonprofit called The Light of Justice, aimed at assisting victims of discrimination and police violence. This fund not only provided legal support but also created educational and training programs to raise awareness about human rights. Daniel, though proud of Maya, continued to silently struggle with a sense of guilt. He knew that he had crossed the line of the law to protect his wife, and that could affect his career. However, Daniel did not regret his actions. He believed that what he had done was right and necessary. The local community also began to change. Victims who had once remained silent now felt empowered to speak out. Conversations between the community and the police started to take place, creating positive steps toward improving the relationship between both sides. While Maya and Daniel continued on their journey, Kevin began his new life in prison. Here, he no longer had power or protection. Other inmates, particularly those who had been victims of racial discrimination, did not hesitate to express their contempt and outrage toward him. Kevin lived in fear and isolation. Growing increasingly bitter, he began to blame everyone around him, from his former colleagues to the leaders who had once protected him. But the reality was that his own wrongful actions had led him to this fate. Gradually, Kevin stopped appearing in the news. He became a forgotten name, a lesson about the consequences of abusing power and prejudice. Meanwhile, Maya's story and the movement she started continued to be remembered as a symbol of hope and justice. After the legal battle and relentless efforts to regain justice, Maya felt relieved but also exhausted. The lawsuit was over, but the scars of the days filled with humiliation and struggle still left a deep mark on her soul. She often woke up startled in the middle of the night, remembering Kevin's contemptuous gaze and the insults he hurled at her. However, Maya knew she could not live forever in the shadow of fear. One morning, she looked at herself in the mirror and told herself, "I'm not just fighting for myself, but for those who don't have the chance to speak up. This journey isn't over." She decided to dedicate all her time to developing the Light of Justice organization. Maya began organizing talks at schools, community centers, and even churches to raise awareness about human rights and social justice. Her stories inspired many people, especially women of color and others who had faced injustice like she had. At the same time, Maya learned to forgive, not for Kevin or the system that had hurt her, but to free herself from the burdens of anger and hatred. She started practicing yoga, meditating, and seeking therapy to heal. The dark days gradually faded away, giving way to the light of confidence and strength. Maya became an unofficial symbol of the justice movement. Many began calling her the Beacon of Hope, a title she accepted with gratitude. After helping Maya regain justice, Daniel also began to feel the weight of the decisions he had made. Being a CIA agent was never easy, but using his resources to go against Kevin had put him in a dangerous position. One day, he received a call from his superiors. "Daniel, we know you have overstepped your authority in the Kevin Brooks case. This violates the principles of the CIA." The voice on the other end was stern. Daniel wasn't surprised. He had mentally prepared for this call long ago. Still, he calmly responded, "I did it to protect my family. I'm ready to take responsibility." After an internal investigation, the CIA decided not to pursue criminal charges against Daniel, but requested that he step down from his current position. Daniel accepted, even feeling a sense of relief. He knew that although this job had brought him success and recognition, it had taken too much of the time and energy that should have been spent with his family. Daniel decided to retire early and dedicate all his time to Maya and their children. He participated in community activities alongside his wife, supporting her in the Light of Justice organization's projects. The skills he had gained from his work became a great advantage as he helped Maya build a comprehensive support network for victims. However, the past of a CIA agent was not so easily forgotten. Sometimes, Daniel still felt uneasy, fearing that enemies from past missions would return to haunt him. But whenever he saw Maya and their children laughing, he reassured himself that he had made the right decision. Thanks to Maya's perseverance and effort, the local community began to change. Those who once felt powerless in the face of injustice now had a place to turn. The Light of Justice organization not only provided legal support but also organized educational programs, citizenship workshops, and free classes for children from underprivileged families. Maya also worked closely with the local police to improve the relationship between them and the community. Some young officers, eager to change the system from within, volunteered to participate in empathy training and courses on handling situations without resorting to violence. Small changes began to appear, incidents of abuse of power decreased, and trust between the police and the public improved. One day, at a community meeting, an elderly woman approached Maya. She took Maya's hand and said, "You've changed my life and the lives of many others. Thank you for not giving up." Maya smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. She understood that words like these were the motivation that kept her going. On a peaceful afternoon, Maya and Daniel sat on the porch, watching their two children play in the yard. Both of them felt a sense of relief and gratitude, knowing that they could finally enjoy life without the shadows of the past hanging over them. "Do you regret what happened?" Daniel asked, breaking the silence. Maya shook her head, her gaze turned toward the horizon. "No, I don't regret it. What we've been through wasn't easy, but it has made us stronger, and I believe the changes we've made will have lasting impact." Daniel smiled and took her hand. He knew Maya was right. Despite the difficult path they had walked, they had turned their pain into strength to build a better future. In the distance, the afternoon sunlight bathed the yard, a reminder that the light of justice, though obscured at times, would ultimately prevail.